Welcome back to another episode of the fourth Little Quick Takes. I'm here with my co-host Nicholas Sade. Really, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Doing well. So, this topic came to mind during our last episode was the divides between our own communities, which we are both Navajo, and one very big divide is the I want to say like the line of being a native from the res and a native that lives in the city.
Yep. You want to be a true native or urban Indian?
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, man, you and I both grew up in a border town.
Yeah.
But we are always like we all had our heritage back in like the res, and we would
Yeah.
go visit like very, very frequently and
Yeah.
everything. And I remember like when we were smaller, we'd always kind of talk like crap about like city natives and all that.
Yeah.
Kind of showing like how we're tougher growing up on the res. We know how to survive out there and all that.
Yeah.
I honestly do think that like we still know how to do all that stuff, but we just adapted that to the city.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, we do fall. I feel like we fall right in the middle.
Yeah.
For me, I just spend like entire summers on the res, and then
Mhm.
like during the school seasons, I'll be in the border town Winslow, which is like practically Winslow is the res. Like
Pretty much, yeah.
no, it's like there's not much difference. Like we have like I don't know, a Walmart.
Yeah.
It's like only difference between Winslow and like Winter Rock is we have a Walmart practically.
It's all you still see the whole res at Walmart.
So yeah, I don't think that's big of a difference. But for me, the divide, like they blame the kid, like us, like we aren't fluent in Navajo. We understand it, but like we don't speak Navajo fluently,
Yeah.
and it's not anybody's fault. It's just like it's a new day and age. It's like
Mhm.
we don't need to know Navajo to survive, and that's a big part of us not learning it. But we still value the culture. We still have Navajo values. It's just we can't speak the language, and it's like there's not enough encouragement. Like if you don't know Navajo, it's like elders would just like talk shit about you,
Yeah.
practically.
And that's one thing I learned is like my grandparents, my mom, and my uncle, and everybody else.
Yeah.
They all speak Navajo, and that's just the thing is like if you want to learn how to speak Navajo, it has to be an everyday thing.
Yeah.
You got to live it pretty much if you want to speak Navajo, and it's hard being in the city and plus the border town and just being a busy person
Yeah.
trying to learn a language. Spanish was kind of it wasn't too hard in high school, but we still had to go to it every day, and just because I haven't speaking Spanish or spoken Spanish in like a couple years, it feels like I lost a lot of it, and I'm pretty sure that comes with the language is you have to practice it every day
Yeah.
with somebody. So I would think that there has to be like a new way of trying to transmit, I don't know, the Navajo language to
Yeah.
us.
For us, like Spanish is a different. Like we're able to mess up on Spanish and be fine. But since we are Navajo and we do follow the tradition and we do believe in it, like if we mess up on a Navajo word, it's huge.
Yeah.
Like if you say the wrong thing in Navajo, it could have like lasting effects on you,
Mhm.
which is like bad. And it's like when you try to learn it and you try to like when I try to speak Navajo and it's like I mess up on a word, the elders like right on you. It's
Yeah,
like
there's-
you messed up. Like why are you saying it this way? You shouldn't say it this way.
There's always that kind of like that hushke,
Yeah.
and in Navajo that means like the discipline or the I guess the stricter way of learning is the hushke side of
Yeah.
everything. So that's something I learned from my grandpa too. He's like, no, you're not saying it right. Kind of gets at me. I was like, I'm sorry, you gotta go more.
You're missing
Yeah, and it's just like it's growing up like we both know like a little bit enough of the
Yeah.
language and enough to know the experience of trying to learn it, and it goes up and down. Like that's why our language is the unbreakable code in like
Yeah.
World War II. No one could decipher it. So
It's hard because like I was saying, there's a lot of discouragement, and I feel like we need more encouragement. But it's hard because Navajo is already one of the hardest languages to learn and pick up. It's something that you just can't pick up in a year or a week or a month. It's an everyday thing, and you have to grind. And it's even on the Navajo reservation. It's not common to for like you can still speak English and still be fine. You can still go to like stores and speak English and do your day to day without ever having to speak a lick of Navajo. So like the idea of fully immersing yourself in a language isn't there. It's like if we were to go to Mexico right now, leave us there, and it's like we would have to pick up Spanish on the fly. Like
Mhm.
we would be forced to speak the language.
Yeah.
But for Navajo, it's not like that. Like you could drop us in the middle of the Navajo reservation, and like we could still
Speak English.
speak English and be fine.
I think the only place you'd have to speak fluent Navajo is a chapter meeting. They have all the elders speaking fluent Navajo. Just is like, what? It's like you lost me.
So yeah, there's a deep divide going back to the topic.
Yeah.
We get so much off topic between uh, natives who lived on the res, grew up on the res, and natives who grew up in the city, and we're kind of in the middle of it. But you can't blame the native that grew up in the city. It's more of like the parents. Like you could live in the city and still have the Navajo values, but if the parent didn't teach that, and you're putting that blame on the kid, you're blaming the wrong person. You should
Yeah.
blame the parent. You shouldn't blame
Yeah.
the kid.
That's one thing, I kind of had a conversation with my girlfriend was today even was if, if I were to raise my children in the city, I would want to at least bring them back to the res for like a while, like a week at a time, and teach them where they come from and all that, as well as possibly move back in the future and everything. But that's definitely like how you said, it comes from the parents. You have to have those teachings as a Diné person, as a traditional Diné person. You got to know where you come from, and I think that's like a strong basis of being a Navajo, being indigenous, is knowing where you come from. That's my foundation.
Yeah.
That's where I build off of everything. Is that I come from, Jitlajin, Black Mesa area.
Yeah.
So that's where I come from, and that's always been like the backing of who I am as a Diné person.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you have to teach your children if you want to do that. It's teach them where they come from, show them where they come from.
Yeah, a big part of our culture is our stories. And like a lot of people that I know of, like who are full blooded Navajo, don't know the stories. And it's like that's the backbone of our culture. That's connects our prayers, it connects our ceremonies. It's embedded in everything. And it's like if you want to learn our culture, our tradition, our values, it's in the stories.
Yeah.
And that's how our tradition was passed on all these years. And it's like all these people don't know the story. So when like my friends they ask me, and it's like, oh, like, can you explain this to me? I'll try to my best ability that I can, like the way I was taught.
Yeah.
And it's like they have nowhere else to turn because if they were to ask an elder, they wouldn't be able to explain it in a way that can relate.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I try my best to put it in a way for them to understand in today's terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that would be like a pretty cool mission, not just for us, but for like anybody of you out there.
Yeah.
That's like a big struggle that we have, is like just kind of like literally the fact that like our culture is slowly kind of dying out just because there's a divide in communication tactics
Yeah.
of how to transmit the stories over generations. There's different ways, and I guess you can say our generations grew up differently. Every generation is different. They all have their own struggles and their new ways of learning and aspects of looking at life.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt your way of storytelling, the way you teach the language and everything like that, but still keep it traditional, I guess you could say. Keep the core values of it, but find a new, brighter way to bring it across to younger generations.
Yeah. And don't look down upon anybody. Like if somebody's interested in learning the language, the stories, like don't put them down. At least try to like to build them up and talk to them about it. Like tell them you don't do this because of this, instead of just being like, no, you don't do that. Why? Because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
there's no way you're just gonna discourage them from learning.
Yeah.
And it's like you should be encouraging them, like teaching them the right way.
Mhm.
And that's not a lot of that's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like for me, it's just like a lot of people weren't like had their grandparents there to teach them all these things, and like
Mhm.
for me being younger, like my grandparents were willing to like teach me all these things and teaching all these values, but some people they don't have that, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's just like not a lot of people were privileged, like how you said, to have all that stuff because I guess you could say through cultural genocide throughout the years,
Yeah.
stories and all that have been lost. So there is a big divide between city natives and urban natives. But if you teach those core values and everything like that, there shouldn't be a difference at
We're all
all.
Navajo. That's my
Yeah,
point. But I don't know. I at least show some interest in learning the culture. Like
exactly.
don't be getting these scholarship checks or these stimulus checks
And not
and not care about our culture.
exactly. Don't claim to be, you know, native if you don't live the life.
Or have interest, show interest,
Yeah.
and like learn our values, learn the tradition, learn the language.
And that's what, like, with us, like
Yeah.
we're open, like we don't know the language fluently, but
But
we're
we're
willing
on
to
a
learn. So yeah.
So thank you watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and please watch our other videos. It's just great fun.